This is what we call the Weege Show. We ask questions that are not really involving day-to-day racing. Brian, we know you're an athlete, no doubt about it. I'm sure you've gone to Red Bull's deal in Santa Monica. You probably measure up pretty good. Have you measured up pretty good at some other athletes and some testing and stuff? Pretty good?
Yeah, you tried to, yeah. But it's been some good measurements.
Yeah. All right. But were you an athlete like as a kid? Like I'm talking like random third grade gym class. Were you like the fastest dude or anything? Did you know, hey, I'm an athlete, or did it all come later when you started riding motocross and stuff?
You know, it's funny. Nobody's ever asked me that, actually.
That's what we do here, bro.
Yeah. Interestingly enough,
all right, I like it.
Had to get that out. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it was actually, I was in first and second grade in elementary school. One time a year, 2 times a year actually, we had this little 8th mile, and it was 8 or maybe it was 16 laps would be a mile.
Yeah.
So very short track, but we'd have to run basically the mile run. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
And whoever, you drop whoever could, fastest man won, whatever.
Sure.
But I remember taking off, like going for it, and I'm like, and there's this one guy who was just outrunning me for probably 4 laps. Well, he faded off. And I just always remember this. And then I went, and then every time the mile run came around, and I won every time, which was kind of interesting. So at a young age, I was like the whole fitness side, that being fit, I kind of started to all make sense at an early age. But yeah, it's funny how I rode, and then that was taking place. So it's kind of funny where here we are now.
Yeah, now you're looking back and saying, oh, I guess I had talent cardiovascular-wise,
Yeah.
but you didn't know at the time.
Yeah, it was just like do a mile run. It was gym class, and this is what we're doing today with the first grade class, and that's what it was. So I just remember being all pumped I won. But I remember suffering. I was just like, I want to quit. I want to stop. This is too much. But I kept going. So, but yeah, and then as I got older, I knew like training was a part of. I always just knew training was a part of like being with racing. I just somehow that always stuck with me, and then 3rd grade came around, 4th grade I would work with my dad on some of the summers, but I also before school in the summertime I'd get up I set my alarm for 5 o'clock. 5 a.m. the sun was up, during that time of the year, and it was going, and then I remember at night it sounded good, but the morning the thing went off. I was like,
oh yeah.
I don't want to get up. this is too tough. But I got up.
You did it?
Oh, yeah. I got out of bed. One morning, my mom and dad are on the deck. Dad's smoking a cig. I actually am running on the road looking at mom and dad on their deck. And so I get back, and they're like, where did you go? I was like, yeah, I just did a run, man. Like, come on.
And how old were you?
Oh, this was probably 4th and 5th grade.
That's like 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah. So I was young, and then... But it's just always the stuff. I got up early, and I knew the early mornings were rough, but I always had that satisfaction of even if it wasn't gonna be a racer, just some about it I really enjoyed. And I enjoy the training and the athlete side, the road biking and all that aspect of it. And I would still do it if I didn't race, but it's rejuvenating. I think anybody who works out can tell you that. It's getting past that hump, that point where you're like, you don't want it, and then you almost like need to do it,
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
You were kind of snowed in Minnesota when you were a kid. I remember you told me this story once. You finally got a chance to go to Texas, and you let it all out. Like I heard you were doing crunches like in the closet or something.
Yeah, so this was 2004. No, it was 2003. I was in 8th grade. I'm getting years messed up, but I was 8th grade, and I remember it was winter time, and it was cold. Yeah. And I remember I'd come home, and we had this little water reservoir we'd run on top of, and one point it was 10 minutes, to the next it was 20, and the next was 30, but I'd run all the way and then come back. It was about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I remember I had like three sweatpants on, two t-shirts, one long sleeve, two heavy jackets, and I was like loaded down, and then I would put these 10-pound weights around my ankles, so I had 20 pounds, and I wondered why I was so sore. But I would take off after school, and I did it for a while. Then I finally, like you said, I finally got down to Texas.
But when you did finally get a winter, this is like paradise probably.
Yeah, it was nice. I do miss the winter months, the 4 seasons of it, but for sure, it's tough because for our schedule, being a racer, you can't do much in the wintertime other than some indoor training, which, man, after a couple weeks of that, you're all sweated out. you know, depleted, and like you can only do so much sweating, you know, and then there's nothing like riding a dirt bike, so you have to make sure you're up on that.
However, is there a chance that you not being able to ride year-round when you were really young has paid off now? Are you a little fresher, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, I would watch kids that I grew up racing, a lot of them, and I mean, they were at it all year round, and they were very good. I mean, and some of them still are. But I also, you could see the burnout phase. You know, I just know that I got to be a kid. You know, I got to go to school, have, you know, hang out with buddies, and not that they didn't get to do that, but I got to do the winter stuff. I got to go snowboarding. Yeah. I got to go snowmobiling, and I got ice fishing. I mean, I did so much stuff with my family and my friends and everything that. Sure, I missed racing, but that hunger only built more and more and more. Yeah. That when it was time to go, when I was 15, that was my first year. I was gone, and it was kind of looked back. Hindsight's 20/20 a little bit now. You know, it's like I realize why that was the way it was, but I wouldn't have changed anything. You know.
Well, it says a lot right there for people that are grinding it up. Just give it time, and as long as you know you can win the mile run, you do have to have some talent. Sorry.
So there was some, the mile run. You got to win the mile, but there was. Don't get me wrong. There were some points. I'm like, it was October of '05, and I ended up having a little ankle injury, and I just remember going home and. Man, it was like, it wasn't miserable, but I had a hard time because I'm like, I gotta ride, you know, but my mom and dad were building a house, so dad couldn't really put a lot of attention to us at the time, and I just remember it was a hard time, but it's like, usually when things are the hardest, it's almost the saying, you're close to something good, and so don't give up, keep going, you know.
Did you say you worked for your dad a little bit in like third and fourth grade? Like work?
Yeah, so I would help him occasionally at that young age, but it actually happened. I was me and Jade. You know, we were young. I was fifth grade, going into sixth grade summer, and me and Jade decided we're gonna get into an all-out brawl at the house. Oh boy! Blake couldn't be there. He was too young. You know, he had to go to daycare. But me and Jade, we were old enough to stay home. You know. And, well, that didn't work out too good, and we got into it. Dad was pissed. He come home. You guys, I can't leave you alone. You need to grow up. And then he come and pick me up. He had to go back to work, you know, so construction. I was like, all right, I'll help. And then then after that day, I was like, hey, can I come with you tomorrow? He's like, yeah. And that just turned into an all-summer job, kind of working with Dad. And it's funny, I didn't miss anything. I kind of enjoyed working, and I think my first year I made $2 an hour. Grandpa got me, you know, and then I got the next year was $3 an hour, next summer, and then $4. Then I started crying one time because I thought I got gypped on my money paid, but
From your grandpa?
Yeah, but I miscounted, you know.
I think you just said we're gonna put this on your tombstone, whatever that may be. I enjoyed working. I think that sums up Ryan Dunge. You enjoyed working.
Well, it taught me some good work ethic at an early age, but it was fun. I mean, I was driving the Bobcat. I was like cool. 11 years old, and I realized, look, I can't believe your son's driving the Bobcat. That's really young to let him do that. So I did that a little bit. I was, you'd shovel, cool. Get a sweat, have a bead of sweat running down your head, and it was pretty cool. And then Dad, he would never let me do a lot of the finish work on the concrete because you had to do it right. We didn't Yeah, we didn't want to tear out $5-10 grand worth of concrete, you know. So I was always mad he wouldn't let me do the finishing, and he'd let me edge. He'd let me do a lot of things, and I always joke with him. I'd say, after race, I'm gonna be your foreman, you know. Now my dad's running the company, so.
I know. If there's one guy I believe might do some hard work when he's done racing, I think it might be you. So I believe it. Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
All right.